Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining today's webinar. We're going to get started in about 2 minutes, but right now we have a quick poll that we'd like you to answer while we wait for the others to join. Thanks so much. We'll be back in a few. All right. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining today's webinar. I'm Laura Milevich. I'm the Director of Marketing and Business Development at SIMPLEFI Solutions. Today, we're excited to have our VP of Platform and Technology, Eric Blondin, discussing and demoing migrating your planning to the cloud using SAP Datawarehouse Cloud with SAP Analytics Cloud. Please feel free to reach out to Eric or myself after the webinar with any questions. Also, when the webinar concludes, there's going to be a short survey. So if you guys are able to fill that out, we would really appreciate it. And now I will hand it over to Eric so he can get started. Thanks.
Thank you, Lauren. So I'm actually going to need to close the poll so I can start the presentation. Thank you all for answering. Most of you have actually answered. Just before I close it, from a result perspective, we're pretty much evenly spread between the three answers. A smaller percentage may be implemented it, a bit higher, read about it, but aside from that, all pretty close to a 30% split. So very interesting. So that's going to be an interesting discussion today. So I'm going to close the poll now. Thank you all for voting. Okay, let me share my screen. And people can see my screen, so we should be good. So welcome. Quickly today, the plan is, first of all, introduce who SIMPLEFI is. Some of you online I've actually seen before, but seen virtually most of you, sadly, with the current situation. And then quickly walk through SIMPLEFI pre-packed solutions. One of the big subjects today is to talk about SAC planning complex modeling scenarios. So there are things that today, if you use Analytics Cloud standalone, you're probably going to look at it and figure, okay, my situation is too complex. There are too many specific rules that I don't see how to implement that into Analytics Cloud. Although this is probably true, some of you may not realize the potential with Analytics Cloud, and this is why I'll quickly walk through our SIMPLEFI pre-packed solution. So this is just a few minutes, just so you understand, these are models SIMPLEFI has built. We've implemented them with multiple customers, and they answer a lot of standard planning requirements in Analytics Cloud by itself. Then, once we've covered that, and you've seen what can be done into Analytics Cloud, we'll address what do we consider complex. What are the use cases we're thinking of answering by combining Analytics Cloud with Data Warehouse Cloud. Okay, because I'm sure there are still scenarios these may not answer, although I'm quite confident we'll be covering most of them. And finally, once we've done that and we'll have looked a bit into Data Warehouse Cloud and how we can imagine solving these scenarios, we will be talking about the actual Data Warehouse Cloud roadmap and where that carries us over the next year or two in a context of planning, obviously. I'm not going to go anywhere else in the presentation today. We have an hour, so even covering everything is probably going to be tight. So we will stay focused on the planning concept, okay? So here we go. If you have questions, do not hesitate to type them in the webinar window. There's actually a question in the chat section. I will not be watching it as I talk, but towards the end, I'll be opening it again. And if there's anything there, I'll try to answer to the best of my knowledge or get back to you afterwards if it is not an answer I can cover directly. Oops. Excuse me. So here we are. So who is SIMPLEFI? So SIMPLEFI, we focus on analytics, planning, and consolidation. All our references, consultants are around financial planning. Our consultants are mainly CPAs, MBAs. Typically, I'm the only one who is not a CPA within SIMPLEFI. My background is a lot more into platform and technology, and everyone else at SIMPLEFI is around finance. Everyone has an average of 10 years experience with SAP financial solutions. So obviously Analytics Cloud is not 10 years old. So we've played with other tools in the SAP landscape. Analytics Cloud, obviously, group reporting, which is quite recent as well, and is pure financial consolidation. Behind this, there's always some BW, HANA. Today, we're talking about Data Warehouse Cloud and any type of SAP integration. And obviously, the traditional stack, which is BPC and business objects. Okay, we've done a whole lot of BPC implementations over the years and business objects as well. So these tools are still there. We're still able to support them. But let's admit, most new projects today are around Analytics Cloud, group reporting. There's still a lot of BW, HANA, and slowly we're seeing now Data Warehouse Cloud getting out of there. We are really focused on customer service. One thing, we are a small boutique firm, so 100% of our customers must be referenceable. This is our target. This is what we work for. We cannot afford losing customers because we manage them improperly. We build references. This is how we can build that reputation. We are headquartered in Chicago, focused a lot on the US Midwest, but Northeast regions are also covered. Myself personally, I'm actually in Montreal, Canada, and most of our people are based in Chicago, Illinois. So very quickly, leadership team. So managing partner, John, manages mostly sales and solutions. So if you do get in touch with us, start talking about maybe building something out, John will be involved very quickly. Lauren, who introduced me, really manages our marketing and business development side. Beth, I work a lot with Beth from a senior director, and she manages a lot of our pre-sales events, although I do quite a few of them as well. We are not only specialized on Analytics Cloud, but we've specialized enough that SAP really engages our team to build workshops, demos, and events. Some of you may have seen some of our events. Well, with the current situation, we've been creating regular monthly events through webinars, doing workshops, doing demonstrations and all. So really follow on our website or our LinkedIn page. We are quite involved in that, and you may have seen us also on the SAP's newsletters about Analytics Cloud as we get involved with them to really build some of the demonstrations to really support where Analytics Cloud is going. Some references, I talked about 100% referenceable customers. So obviously these are some of our latest ones, and clearly we hope to have more over the next years that will be able to talk about us as awesome consultants and happy customers. So simplified pre-pack solution. So that was the intro. Don't want to spend too much time on it. You're not here to hear about a consulting firm. You want to hear about planning solutions and complex when using Data Warehouse Cloud. So this is where we're heading. But first, let's go through simplified pre-pack solutions. Simplified pre-pack solutions are, it's not an add-on, it's not an external tool. These are only models we pre-built in Analytics Cloud and really enable us to provide a starting point when we start a project with our customers. Today, we have all of these pre-packed solutions where, and I'm going to go and walk through them over the next few slides, and we literally, in 2 weeks, we can stand them up, and then, and with some of the customers' master data, so their customers, their GL accounts, cost centers, bring them all on this, and we have a solution that works. Obviously, next step afterward is to really build it out to your actual specifications and requirements. But you know, when we talk about a project like that, it's always 80-20. That 80% of the work is already done with this pre-packed content. Now, when we work with you, we can focus on that 20%, but we already have a working solution. And this has been a clear win on a lot of our rollouts, because it really, when you know already what kind of things you can really focus on your specifics. You don't have to think too much about some details that are supposedly basic, but when you start from scratch, you still need to think about it to define them. So our pre-packed solution, it goes around sales analytics, profitability analytics, P&L report books, P&L planning, CapEx, HR, expense, and sales and margin planning. So as I mentioned, each program can be deployed in weeks, and our record is 2 weeks. It works as is. If what's in there covers your requirements, 2 weeks, and it's in there. Obviously, typically people will need some adjustments for their very custom requirements, so we add a few weeks to make this work. It includes the planning models. So this is where all the data is stored, the data actions. These are really the process that apply your business rules. The stories, which is really the front end you use to enter, plan, and analyze whatever was planned. You can report on consolidated financial statements, detailed operational data, and data coming from multiple sources, all in one interface with only one tool. So you do your analytics, you do your planning, all in one spot. And this is what our pre-packed content really enables you to do, but through Analytics Cloud, which already provides all those functionalities. So when we talk about financial reporting and analysis, you can imagine your bridge analysis. You can work with constant currency. This can be a challenge when you have multiple countries that are covered by your plan. So we've enabled that in our model a bit differently, actually, than the standard currency solution that SAC provides. So that's something that's quite interesting. Provides additional flexibility around currencies. Price, volume, mix calculations, some standard financial statements, standard comparative, trended consolidation report books. So this is from a financial reporting and analysis. So a few samples here. One thing that's interesting, we do consolidation statements. So Analytics Cloud is not a consolidation solution, but from a plan perspective, basic eliminations, basic consolidation transactions are possible. You can actually apply all those rules in there, and we've actually built a simple consolidation. If your consolidation is very simple, we've actually built it with Analytics Cloud, although it is not a consolidation solution per se, but in some simple cases, it's all you need. Financial reporting packages around balance sheet or automated cash flow. Sales and margin planning, flexible sales volume planning, so by units. So you really plan everything by units, and then you dollarize your plan. So this is also something that is part of our pre-packed content. We've built some Salesforce analytics off Salesforce, and with quota planning, really all based on the information you maintain in Salesforce, because you may not all have your data in SAP all the time, and Salesforce is one of the sources we've worked on. Expense planning, P&L planning, these are all things that come together and feed into the financial planning and analytics that we saw at the beginning. So all this is pre-built. You may need to specify some accounts, but aside from that, you build it and you can start planning on it. maybe, and you'll have your cost center instead of the default ones we built in there. Capital planning, so either on working capital, project planning, CapEx, with some automated calculations for depreciation, among others, and all your analytics and reporting. HR planning, if you were on my workshop last week, we actually built a smaller version of this. So people who attended it for 2 sessions, about 3 hours, we went through step by step to start building out our actual HR planning solution. We weren't building the whole thing. 2 sessions of 3 hours really was not enough for that. But I think a lot of people got a great insight as to how these solutions work and how they can, even themselves, if they have the resources, can build out all their different planning solutions. So if any of those actually piqued your interest, and those are scenarios right now you didn't think SAC could cover, do not hesitate to contact us. We can bring you in with our quick start program, where we just set up the initial connections. We bring in one of our pre-packed content. We create 1 or 2 samples, and you can really start working with that. So very small amount of days. We all know the context in which we're in today. And if you want to, sometimes you just can't imagine a 6-month project. It's just not going to go through. But if you have some very specific use case and you feel, now if I could have this out of the pre-packed content, just a few weeks, and then I can show to everyone within the company, and maybe I could get leverage afterwards. This is really what the Quick Start program is for. It's for you to really be able to capitalize on the solution and have something working very quickly. And obviously, you profit from our expertise on it. And you don't even need to buy Analytics Cloud to do this. Let's say you just realize, okay, you want to try it, but you really have hardly any budget. You may get 10 days to bring, I don't know, SIMPLEFI in to build it out, and that's it. Well, today, you may not know, but Analytics Cloud, actually the free trial includes planning, and it lasts 90 days. So technically, we could do it there, and that with minimal cost, you'd be able to actually get a planning solution working with your data, and then see if you get the leverage you were hoping from within your company. So that was it from pre-packed content. As I mentioned early on, I did not want to spend too much time, but still, I wanted everyone to get a good understanding of what we mean by pre-packed content, what can be done out of the box today in SAC. So what we're going to be discussing is a bit more technical, okay? Because when we talk about Analytics Cloud, we often talk about bringing in data and build out the planning or analyze the data. The ETL side, if I talk about extraction, transformation, load, where I have multiple sources, I can bring them together. If you've had discussions with SAP, with me maybe, with other consultants, you may have heard comments around the fact that SAC is not a data warehouse. It is an analytic tool. It is a planning tool. You can do predictive. You can build analytic applications. You can do a lot of things. But organizing data the way a data warehouse does is not what SAC does. So if you have challenges where you have multiple sources, you need to bring them together, you're always going to be told, okay, well, you need to bring all your data in your BW, in your SQL database, in whatever else you have today, organize it together, and then feed it to SAC. And that, in a lot of cases, that totally misses the point. You want to have a cloud planning solution, not to build out a completely separate solution on-premise, just so you can prepare your data to send it over. And more and more we're talking, let's bring everything to the cloud. And if the solution doesn't do it all, maybe that's not what I need. And so this is really the scenario we're covering today. So, sorry. My webinar window that appears when I click enter. So this is pretty much what I was saying. SAC is not an ETL or modeling tool. So data wrangling, which is how we name the section where we transform data, is great for minor adjustments, but it is not an ETL. So if I go and open here, so this is the data wrangling. So this is actually a BEX query. Is it a BEX query? No, actually, yes, it is. Sorry. So I brought this data from, actually, no, this is a flat file that loads a model that's loaded off BW. So I have some fields that come in, so I can do some adjustments here. So you know, basic things like duplicate column, delete column, hide, delete some rows, or you can convert case. You can create a transform which concatenates, split, extract, replace, change. Okay, so that's actually good when you just want to clean up your data a little bit. Or in some cases, you know, I'm sure you've seen that you received a file where all the months are in columns. But when you bring in a model, you actually want your months like this, not January, February, March. So you can bring that with this, you transpose a bit, something you do simply in Excel. And so you can do it here, transpose it. So this is always useful. And something more recent, if you've looked at your latest updates, most of you who have SAC, you were updated over last weekend. And now you have this functionality where you can go just a little bit further, where you can do if statements, substrings, trim, and a few other formulas. It's actually quite interesting. It adds a little bit of power, but again, you're getting one file. You can sometimes even join it with something else you're loading, but it's still not advanced ETL functionality. You're applying some rules, you're cleaning up the data, which is great when you have some flat files or when your source is prepared already like a BW query, but you will not be able to do really link different sources. So this is the one I was in. Link multiple sources together, apply basic SQL statements, you know. Here, this is the model I was loading. So you just load your data in the star schema with the rules you saw earlier. But if your data needs too many changes, you won't be able to. You'll need to ask someone in your BW team or in your SQL database team, let me fix that data for you so you can load it in there and apply those basic transformations. Maybe you have key and text together, you just want to split them. Some small adjustments like that, but anything else, you need someone else. So this is where we say that SAC is not an ETL or modeling tool. Okay, it's great to make minor adjustments to bring in your data, but if you have a relational model in the back, it's going to be tough to manage. So, and that's what we mean by relational model. So this is the flight model database that SAP provides in most systems today. So I've got different things here. So you actually want to get a star schema that has some ideas. So your date of booking, customer, the flight that was booked, the airline. Okay, but then if you want your statistics around flight, it's not really like that. You need to organize your data differently. And this is the kind of stuff that in SAC, it's a bit complicated to do. You need someone at the database level to create some specific rules, some specific queries you can load in SAC. And this is where Data Warehouse Cloud can really help. So I took here just a few slides from SAP just to bring in the point, but then we're actually going to be logging on into Data Warehouse Cloud just to have a look how we can do it in the Data Warehouse Cloud. So Data Warehouse Cloud, here we're really at the end-to-end data to value. If you've seen some SAP slides, it integrates with SAP, obviously. It provides some business integration, database, data warehouse, and analytics all in one solution. One thing you'll notice here, though, it doesn't talk about planning. Okay, and this actually, there is a limitation today, and we'll get to it, but there is an easy way around it, and that's pretty much a subject of my presentation as well. You can get consolidated view of data across relevant data sources, so you can bring in data from just about everywhere. Different types of data. You can analyze complex and unconventional data sets and multiple templates. You can have real-time analytics. You have some machine learning capabilities you can integrate in there, and you can integrate data from just about everywhere. One of the interesting things is in SAC, it worked a lot on the business layer. Okay, you try to bring everything to business terms. You create your star schema, as I showed you earlier, or you model everything around your key figures. So your margin, your gross profit, all your information is organized so you really know what you're working with. But what's missing to handle complex scenarios is that data layer. Okay, so Data Warehouse Cloud goes even a bit further from a business layer perspective, but again, this is not what we will cover today. But the data layer, how can you there's actually HANA behind all this. So, and if you don't know what HANA is, you haven't listened to a lot of SAP presentation. They've been talking about it since 2011, I think. So it's really their backend database that's pretty much behind everything SAP has today. Excuse me. So what does that data layer actually enable you to do? Okay, so if I go, let me go here, Data Warehouse Cloud. So I've logged on to Data Warehouse Cloud, so you can easily come in and welcome to Data Warehouse Cloud. This is your homepage, a lot of things. This one was actually loaned to us graciously from SAP. And what's interesting, you may have seen my first look at Data Warehouse Cloud video I think it's 2 months ago, where I did go through it, created a few objects, and there were a lot of spaces here. What's interesting is you can imagine, let's say you have Data Warehouse Cloud within your company. This is your FP&A space. So FP&A space, what does that mean? It means within Data Warehouse Cloud, we've brought in standardized information, but for your requirement, we've created a space where you can give rights within your team for people who want to bring in data, who want to create some queries, some stories as well. So stories, if you remember, those are reports out of Analytics Cloud. And okay, excuse me, the webinar bar is in the way. And when you're in here, Data Warehouse Cloud, you can actually switch around and go to Analytics Cloud. So you actually have both systems in one box. But here I'm in my space. Let's say I'm the admin of their SIMPLEFI solutions space in Data Warehouse Cloud. I could technically manage users and create connections. So right now we have a generic Northwind database, and if you configure just about anything, you can add a lot more systems. So ECC, ABAP, Oracle, SQL Server, Cloud Data Integration. That's a new one. I don't know. I don't know that one. And so in my case, I could create generic OData because most of those typically are in your landscape. So you need IT to enable them. So because Data Warehouse Cloud is in the cloud, most of your systems are probably on your servers. So you need to configure some security to be able to access them. So IT does it once, and then you're able to create your connection to those different systems. Today, it's actually off Northwind, but we won't spend too much time. Once you have this, you actually can go in here and bring in all your tables. So some of those tables are remote. You actually don't need them in Data Warehouse Cloud. You're just going to read them from that source system. Some of them, in this case, I'm bringing my budget here directly into Analytics Cloud, and I can then build an ER model that end users won't need to try to figure out exactly how the data is organized in here. So I open the model, all the links, everything is created. So it makes it much simpler for an end user who doesn't have a clue what the primary keys are. It's all pre-built, and when he does anything, you can actually use what's already pre-built in there. I can use a Northwind view. So this is a view that's created for them. Again, all these links, and you can apply rules. We won't go in there too much, but this was built through drag and drop because my entity relationship model earlier was already pre-built. So with that view, now I'm actually able to look at sales because this is what this model is all about. You can go even one step further, and this is where we get into just interesting things that you would have a challenge even more in Analytics Cloud. Already that view, that's something that helps, but you want to go one step further. You have some very complex rules, and those visual interfaces, they're nice for an end user, but when you're building out the core of your solution, sometimes you need to go one step further. So you can create a similar view, in this case, literally bring it as SQL. So if you don't know SQL, that's where you can get a lot of support, but it brings in a lot of flexibility there. And finally, you can create an analytical data set that will look similar to the other one, but this is what Analytics Cloud can actually use as a source. So you're linking different tables. Here, since this is SQL, you can apply a whole lot of rules. And when you get into your story, if I was to go here in Data Warehouse Cloud, so keep in mind, you have an embedded Analytics Cloud in Data Warehouse Cloud, but this is different from the Analytics here. This one here is actually a complete Analytics Cloud solution. Does everything your standard Analytics Cloud solution does. Here, this is only to create stories of analytical data sets. Okay, that's interesting. Obviously, that's a demo world. Not too sure what happened here. But here, Northern Analytics, that's the one we saw earlier. So we built all those relational models, we put everything together. We created a final view, that's our analytical data set. And this is what I can build Analytics Cloud stories off on. I won't do it today. It's not an Analytics Cloud demo today, per se. Excuse me. But this is where I can build it. But one thing you may notice, okay, I'm building a story off a data set. We're talking about planning. Where's my plan? How come I'm not seeing any kind of planning here? And that's where the challenge is today. Because if you go in Analytics Cloud, you have two types of models. You have an analytic model and you have a planning model. When you go in Data Warehouse Cloud and you create your different views and data sets here that we've built, well, these are all the equivalent of analytical models, actually that analytical data set. So there's nothing about planning in here. And that's where typically we will tell you Data Warehouse Cloud is not a planning solution because it doesn't do planning. But if you go in Analytics, you can create a planning model, but you cannot import data. If I go here, okay, let me explain. Let me go into Analytics on the other side. So I'm in Analytics Cloud. So if I create a model, I can create a model. Here we go. So if I want to get data from a data source, you could see live data connection, system type. Actually, let me do it differently. We do not see Data Warehouse Cloud because Data Warehouse Cloud is not enabled to import data into my webinar bar is in the way again. Okay, you do not have Data Warehouse Cloud available to import into Analytics Cloud. So a planning model in Analytics Cloud needs to import data, and separately, Data Warehouse Cloud is actually built for live analysis from Analytics Cloud. The logic is simple behind that. Data Warehouse Cloud, you organize your data. You don't need to import it and work on it even more because it is already pre-organized. So just plug on it live and you'll be able to analyze it. And that's where, from a planning perspective, we're kind of left on the side because we're not able to build a planning solution off Data Warehouse Cloud through those standard interfaces. But obviously, I did not organize that whole webinar just to tell you you can't do it. There is a workaround, and that's pretty much what I hinted at when I was in the introduction for this webinar. The next thing here is this schema access with OpenSQL. What is that exactly? Well, you can actually create a database schema that uses OpenSQL standards, and you can use your favorite ETL tool to bring in data into Data Warehouse Cloud. And this is actually something that is extremely interesting because not only can you bring in data, you can read it as well. And this database schema is readable by, you guessed it, Analytics Cloud as well. So you bring in your data here, You load it from whatever you use today. So let's say data services, that's the SAP ETL tool, but it's OpenSQL. So it means anything can read it. Actually, to carry my point across, I open a tool here. It's called dbeaver. So if you're wondering what that is, so dbeaver, it's really dbeaver. It's a database manager, it's open source. So it connects to just about any SQL database you can imagine. I have one connection here that's actually connected to, if I double click, SIMPLEFI solution OpenSQL. So this is not an SAP tool I'm using here. This is really an open source SQL database solution. And so if that's connecting, most ETL and other SQL solutions that are not vendor specific will be able to connect to this. And then you're able to create your tables. So anything you'd create in SQL behind Microsoft BPC, or something you create behind Anaplan or F-based data you organized, you feed it from somewhere. You can now just reorient your feeds directly in here, create your tables. So I'm going to create a new table. I could start creating the different columns, unique keys and all. Actually, in this case here, just to make it simpler and not to spend too much time on this, I'm actually going to open the SQL editor, and you can literally create your table with some SQL. So I'm going to create small table, standard SQL, just create it here. So GL account, date, I'm creating it in my database schema. The table is called fin budget, GL account, date, cost center, version, value, currency, company. Okay, simple enough. So created it. Seems like things were run. So now, did I run it? 0 rows. I did it like 15 times this morning just to make sure I wouldn't get mixed up. And obviously, I'm wondering if I'm mixed up. If I refresh, it did not create it. Did I lose my connection? Refresh. Okay, so obviously, create table. What did I do? I did something wrong. Always happens when you run in front of everyone. Oh, there. Okay, there was just not too sure what happened. Okay, so I have my table here. I have everything here. So you really have everything that's created in your database now. It took a little while. Not too sure what was happening, but I have my table that was created. Now, okay, so that's great. And you have SQL. So here with that SQL script, you could insert, you can plug your ETL on that table. But okay, that's interesting. Any database can do this. Let's go back in here. Okay, so I've created this. Now, if you go here, you're probably okay. So that's great. So I can use this table. Actually, you need now to enable that table to be used like all the other ones. So you need to integrate it into an ERD model, entity relationship. Look at my sources. So connections. I have my Northwind database. This is where I could have my BW, my ECC, just about anything else. And here I have my OpenSQL schema, fin budget. That's the one I just created. No smoke and mirrors here. Just bring this over, import and deploy. I have my fin budget table. It's all created, all the fields that were created, and what's wrong could not be created. Okay, do not. Okay, so this is the demo paradise today. Things are bugging during the demo itself. But you create your table, and once it's in here, actually, let's save this. Save anyway. Save. And you have your table that's here. Didn't want to click on it. Sorry about that, because I seem to have. Okay, well, it is created. You have it here, relational data set. So I'm not too sure what all those error messages I got were, but you have your table here. And now you're able to create more and more, bring them over. And this one is actually linked here. You still have it here. So you create all your tables, you import them here. you create your entity relationship model, and after a little while, you have your complete on-premise model you have today, on which you create your current SQL views that you've used and were difficult to create in Analytics Cloud. And the ones you have, you can actually create some views and bring them in here as well. So you'd have your views, what you'd use as your source to Analytics Cloud. How would it work in Analytics Cloud? Actually, once you have all this created, this is the only part where you need the help of IT to make all of this work. That's my webinar bar again. Okay, Analytics, I'm going to go back here. And to be able to connect it, you're actually now, since it's an open SQL, you're actually going to be able to go into connections and create your connection. Now, this is where you'll need IT, because since it's a SQL database, you're actually going to need to create a SQL database connection. To create that, well, you need JDBC drivers to be installed on a server that's managed by your company. So you really can manage everything it accesses. And in this case, you set up the driver there. And this is something I'm working for my next webinar, where we will build a complete planning solution based on this notion and bring it into Analytics Cloud, and you can actually plan off it. Okay, right now, sadly, I finally got access to this instance yesterday, so that didn't leave me enough time to set it all up to really be able to organize all of this. But this is really the first step. You have everything. You can really apply your business rules, and from then on, you can really recreate just about anything you'd be doing on premise. Okay, so OpenSQL Schema Access. You can also provide read access to some spaces, and there's some HANA deployment infrastructure with some HANA Cloud. So if you have a lot of cloud solutions as well, there are different ways of integrating it we're not covering today. I'm trying to make it simple and straight to the point for a planning scenario. So while looking at all of this, okay, you saw those complex scenarios. Is this something you see as, yes, that's exactly my issue. That's the reason I didn't think Analytics Cloud could cover my requirement. So if you did recognize yourself here, please send us your scenario, because right now we're really looking and working with some people to build a proof of concept. That proof of concept would be free of charge. We would provide a Data Warehouse Cloud, and if necessary, SAC planning solution. We build out that proof of concept to show you, yes, these are the limitations you thought you had, but those aren't limitations. There's actually an easy way of working around them. We can help you define a clear roadmap to cloud-based planning, understand what this will imply from company perspective, and engage with Simplify SAP to help you explain a complete return on investment around this cloud planning solution. And from then on, this is where we can also help you create a real managed deployment, where we'll help you with design, building, testing, and actual go live. 2020, with everything that's happening now, there's actually possible also to have some rebates that really could help us lower the rate compared to a project any other year. So if this interests you, I'm not spending more time on this here, but if you feel this is something that could bring value to your company, please send your questions to contact@Simplify Solutions, and we'll gladly help you with this. Final part of my presentation, we'll quickly go through the roadmap, and then I see there are questions that were asked, so I'm going to go through them and see. We'll still have about 10 minutes left, so I'll be able to answer any questions that were put in the question window. So this is straight from SAP's website. This was updated, I think, in March. The date, at least on the website, was March. So plan first half of 2020, that's pretty much done. I've looked through it. Most of it is already there, so nothing much more to add. Then the business model builder, we haven't looked at much. Analytics Cloud integration, that's actually the next slide. We'll look at it very quickly, because this is obviously where we would be helped much. There isn't a lot of ETL in Data Warehouse Cloud. Right now, from what I showed you, it capitalizes on an external ETL to feed into it, but slowly SAP will also be building it. What I like actually about Data Warehouse Cloud is first, they enabled the standard open SQL standards, and then slowly they're building their own native solutions around it as well. So by default, it's open to the open source world, and slowly they'll actually create also in parallel their flavor of it that probably is a lot more specific to and similar to other SAP solutions. That's actually a way of working I haven't seen it often from SAP, and I really love in the context of this scenario. And obviously, as this evolves, they will be building out a lot more automation, machine learning capabilities in there, and a lot of other concepts. Let's go quickly. Analytics Cloud and Data Warehouse Cloud. So they've enabled quite a few things. If you look, a lot of it is around analytics. A data analyzer, it's a lot like BEX for the ones who are wondering. In SAC, you can use a BEX-like interface to call BEX queries in BW. This is not available to connect to Data Warehouse Cloud, but it's planned in second half of 2020. And going forward, integration of Analytics Cloud for planning. It's in product vision. So, and this is where, honestly, in my mind, it's not even an issue, because by using the Open SQL connection, you can do all your planning in Analytics Cloud, bringing in only the data you need in Analytics Cloud for your plan, and the rest of your modeling, you do it in Data Warehouse Cloud. So even though going forward, they want to integrate planning in Data Warehouse Cloud, what that means is you create a story in Data Warehouse Cloud, you can actually create a planning model in Data Warehouse Cloud where you write in data. That would be great, but we already have a planning solution that works great importing data from S4, from SQL databases, from BW, and this is already what we do. So we can do the same thing with Data Warehouse Cloud, but at least from then on, all your data is in the cloud and you really can capitalize on it. Okay, so almost 50 minutes passed, so that was it for my presentation. Let me look at what the questions are. So we have paid for SAC as our planning solution. Do we need extra for being able to load transform data for planning purposes? Why does not limited set of data for planning customers? Okay, and the same person asking the question, is the point of your demo that plan and relation store? Okay, no. Okay, so I'm actually going to answer both questions quickly. So the first part is Data Warehouse Cloud. It's a data warehouse. Any planning solutions, so even if we talk about BPC, Anaplan, S-Base, Hyperion, all of those solutions, they always assume you will need to prepare your data before you load it in there. That's kind of the planning landscape, how it works. So this is how the SAC planning side of things was built. If you need to rework your data today, you're most probably doing it, some people in Excel, some people in the local database. And so here, Data Warehouse Cloud brings this part of the solution in the cloud as well. So it's really something separate. It's always been separate from just about any vendor. And it's only when you need enhanced modeling capabilities, you want a database, but you want it in the cloud, you want a data warehouse with it, this is where Data Warehouse Cloud will help you. So right now in the roadmap, SAP does not give a limited set of features. Keep in mind though, SIMPLEFI is an SAP partner. So if they're thinking of something else around this, we haven't heard of it. And the second part is the point of your demo that you don't have to create an SAC planning model anymore. You actually know all those tables we created. This is where you can actually work with your data, pre-work it, to clean it up, create a relational model, the kind of things you cannot create in SAC. So to organize your data, clean it up, so you can then feed it into an SAC planning model. So the end result is the SAC planning model, but all the stuff you do in the SQL Server, HANA, or any other BW system, now you can actually do it in the cloud as well and keep both of them together. That was really the point. Sorry if that didn't come across more clearly. Those are the only two questions we had here. Anything else you want? So if this is it, do not forget when you leave to there's excuse me, there are just a few, not a poll, but a few questions at the end, just how you like this webinar, comments you may have around it, and please do fill it up. It really helps us organize and create webinars that answer what people really want to look at. Okay, so if there are no more questions, thank you very much for attending, and hope to talk to you all soon. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.